Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 459, be recorded on July 19th, 2017. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Allyn Malventano.
I feel like Josh looks exceptionally color balanced today. Do you guys agree with this?
He's very color
He's
balanced.
marvelous.
Yeah. He's got a sheen going on.
Wow,
the colors in
sweating.
It's a healthy glow.
Welcome everybody to our weekly podcast where we talk about computer hardware and other random crap. We do record the show on Wednesday nights, which it is currently as we record this, at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at pcper.com/live.
Don't forget 8 p.m. Mountain, the most important.
The fewest
time
people live in that time zone of any time zone in our country for certain.
But the best.
And maybe
people.
the world. Maybe the world. You think about it, you know.
No, Newfoundland's got their own half-hour time zone.
Oh, really?
And it's literally just them.
There are a couple of 15-minute time zones.
What?
True? Oh,
Why?
Yeah. Politics and...
What if we had an
know.
even gradient of time zones all the way across the country?
What if we just freaking got rid of it altogether?
Business would be hard.
What do you mean we got rid of it altogether?
Everybody went GMT?
Just GMT.
Yeah.
GMT for
That
all
doesn't
make any sense.
Just GMT.
Then
I like my idea of a gradient better, so that whenever the sun is directly above you, it's always noon, no matter where you're
Oh.
at. So literally every street is going to be a
that's
slightly
murder.
different time.
That'd be awesome. You'd be driving around and your phone would be buzzing every 5 seconds going, hi, you've entered a new time zone. Would you like to update?
Welcome to.
Hi, you've entered a new time zone. Would you like to
I do like that addition to Google Maps when I was driving through the state. It would be like, welcome to Virginia.
yeah,
I'm like, thanks, I guess. I don't know.
time is a flat circle. It's fine.
Yeah. Sorry for sending out my last little tweet here. I forgot about it. If you want a reminder about our live streams, you can come hang out with us. You can see the pre-show, the post-show. You can hang out in the chat room and bug us and ask us questions and bug us. And I don't know what other people do in the chat room. But pcper.com/subscribe is a place where you can go. Looks like this. You get your name and your email address in there. We basically will send you a notification to your email inbox an hour, 2 hours, 20 minutes before we do a live stream, something to that
Sometimes
effect.
after.
Sometimes after. It depends on if I'm not here or not. And we'll just say, hey, reminder, we're going to do a live stream. And we use it only for live stream stuff. So it's either for this or it's for something like we have somebody coming in to do a live stream, or we're doing another live stream on our own of some other accord. So keep that in mind. And also, not to be forgotten, we have the ongoing Patreon campaign at patreon.com/PCPer. This is people who enjoy our content and our show's ability. People who enjoy our content or shows, their ability to contribute to the website and to the content on kind of a monthly recurring basis. So you can pledge $1 or $3 or $5. If you pledge $3, for example, you get access. We save the post show every week. We send the link to the to people who have pledged $3 or more to participate in the post show. Sometimes it's 5 minutes of random BS. Sometimes it's 50 minutes of random BS. It depends on how up to the task everybody appears to be that night.
And you know what? You're kind of marketing this to the wrong people.
Oh boy!
You need to talk about the people who hate our podcast. They need to donate because this is therapy for them.
Oh.
Have you read YouTube comments?
Oh man, that's true. That's true. If every person who had a hateful comment for us on our YouTube channel gave us $1,
Oh, yeah.
we'd be good for a while.
We'd be good.
We'd be good for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
And they would be able to just cleanse themselves through the wonders of internet.
As is always the case, if you become a new patron and or increase your patronage during the live stream, I will read off your name no matter how funny or distasteful it may be, whatever you put in the name field of your contribution, I guess. So keep that in mind as we go. So let's talk about the handful of things we're going to talk about today. We're going to start with quickly running over Sebastian's review of the ASUS ZenBook 3 UX 390UA laptop.
You're going to run over his review?
We're going to run over it.
Okay.
Right. Or through it. I don't know which one's better, right? Like over it or through it. So this is a ultra portable machine, 12.5-inch, thin and light, as he calls it. It's got a 1080p IPS screen. You get to choose between Core i5, Core i7 processors, 7th gen, 16 gigs of DDR4, 512 gig PCIe SSD. And this is one that was announced last CES, and is kind of the competitor to the MacBook. Is that right? Is that because we have this analogy because the MacBook launched with a single USB Type-C port. This also has a single USB Type-C port. Mm-hmm. That is, it's the entirety of its connectivity capability. But it is a damn sexy looking machine. It's got a huge trackpad. It's got a great display on it. I think the keyboard actually types exceptionally well. You can see this specification listing here. The model we got was the Core i7 7500U. You know, this is going to be the pricier spend. $1499. So really not stupid crazy for the type of horsepower you get in this. And again, a 512 gig PCIe SSD is actually pretty damn impressive.
It does come with one of those dongles. It's not a lot on a dongle, but at least it's something to spread out the ports a little bit.
Does the MacBook come with this dongle?
No, but Apple will sell you one.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So you get a USB 3.0 port, Type A, an HDMI full size, and then a USB Type-C port as well. So you can pass through charging that way as well.
It probably doesn't function as an actual type like USB port. It's just for charging. I think that's usually how these dongles work. I don't know about this specific one, but
like you couldn't plug in another Type-C thing into it if you were just using the laptop on the go.
I feel like they usually break out charging.
Huh.
Okay. Very clean design, very thin. Sebastian goes through in his normal excellent style with fantastic photography. You can see, I mean, look at this thing. Like there's literally there's the USB port and there's a 3.5 millimeter audio jack. That is the extent of the things you can plug into this machine.
The laptop is like floating.
He's very good at this stuff.
In these pictures.
He does a good job. So it is an IPS LCD screen, ZenBook 3, the we're talking about here, 12.5-inch. His only complaint was the brightness, max light output of 352. So that's not awful, but we've definitely seen laptops go quite a bit higher than that. And actually kind of surprising. Usually IPS machines will go higher.
Using it on the sun would
be like that.
Might be touchy. Is really the only issue.
And it's not a matte finish or anything like that either.
If you're indoors, you shouldn't be 350.
No. I mean, we set ours when we do our review, when we do our battery test, it's at 180 lux.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
and even that is still on the bright side.
Yeah.
Like we're kind of on the high side.
Yeah. I think it's reasonable. This overhead shot of the keyboard gives you an idea of the kind of the form factor, right? Like there's literally no space between the edges of the keyboard and the sides of the devices. It is backlit, big touchpad with a fingerprint reader. Performance-wise, this is a 15-watt TDP processor, so there's not going to be a whole lot of variance. Because of the way Intel has integrated, base clocks, boost clocks, etc. You look at the Core i7 7500U versus the Core i5 7300U. Yeah, there's a difference, but there's really not that much. And in fact, i5 is a little bit faster.
I mean, think about the thermal restrictions, though.
Correct.
I think the X1 Carbon is it's a much thicker laptop, which is a weird thing to say for a really thin laptop, but fitting a 15-watt processor in a form factor this small without having any noticeable throttling in these benchmarks is very impressive.
It is, but what I mean is all the 15-watt parts in thin and lights close to this are going to behave similarly because the thermal restrictions, basically, they can all spike up to a certain amount, but they're not going to be able to stay there very long, right? Yeah. So it's, but if you look at Cinebench scores, for example, the ThinkPad was a little bit faster, actually quite a bit faster than the ZenBook as well. I mean, and that's your thermal constraint.
Compare it to XPS 13 2-in-1, which is a still thicker form factor in which they chose to go with a lower wattage processor because of the form factor, and it performs worse.
Sure, it does.
Just interesting to look at.
Yep, it all balances out. And so you can see here that Sebastian included CPU ID hardware monitor results, so you can see what the temperatures were floating at here. Not too bad, actually, in the grand scheme of things. Kind of under load, 80C for the CPU. Storage performance was good. This is a Toshiba 512 gig NVMe SSD. I don't know anything about this particular part. It's an OEM part that corresponds to the retail OCZ RD400. You have any recollection of the RD400?
The Revo Drive 400? Yeah.
Okay.
That's the same. The Toshiba SSD is the same one that was in the XPS 13 2-in-1.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Just as a fun fact.
Yeah, just a M.2.
Because we noticed the same sort of, well, looked like it was on a buy-to link performance drop-off.
Gotcha. Battery life, not fantastic. When you do get into these super, super small, thin and lights, you sacrifice battery capacity, right? And so the ZenBook 3 UX390UA is just over 6.2 hours of runtime, whereas that XPS 13 that you were talking about that sacrifices performance got more than 2 hours of extra battery life because of it. And then if you go up to ThinkPad X1, which does use a Core i5, but it is a larger, again, another kind of a step up in size, you get even more battery life there at 9.32 hours. So keep that in mind as you look at something like the ZenBook. It's an impressive piece of hardware. Did get a silver award. We do have the UX490 UA which is a follow-on to this, which is actually a 14-inch screen in a 13-inch form factor with, I think it has 3 USB 3.1. No, it has 3 Type-C ports. 2 of them are Thunderbolt 3, I think. So it kind of expands your connectivity, but it's essentially using the same hardware form factor. So we'll take a look at that too. But
the new one, dual drive.
I don't think so. No, it's still super thin. I think you're thinking of the S510 that we've been looking at recently. Yeah. So that is the ZenBook 3 UX390 UA written up by Sebastian. Check that out. We encourage you to do so. And another one that we're going to encourage everybody to check out. Oh, we go out of order here. I can move. Wait. No, I went out of order. Okay. No, you're out of order. So this was kind of the I guess probably the topic that we're most interested to look about. This thing sitting in front of Allyn over here is the Vega Frontier Edition. But this one is gold instead of blue.
It's for that extra $500,
It's plated in actual gold.
That better be.
So this is the liquid-cooled variant of the Frontier Edition. Same specifications otherwise. Still the Vega 16 gigs of HBM2, 4096 GPU cores. They still list it at the same base clock, boost clock, even though the clock speed is really what changes in this platform compared to the air-cooled.
Wasn't there a spec that listed a different power somewhere?
Yes, the power consumption is different. So when they first announced both these cards, the air-cooled was 300, the water-cooled was 375.
Okay.
They have since adjusted it, and now the water-cooled is rated at 350 watts TDP. Now
but it doesn't come that way.
Yeah, so so first let me show you this first. Like, this is what the card looks like. It's pretty sexy. It's a water cooler. The design of the pump and cooler is very different.
Yeah, it does not whine.
It does not have a kind of a typical.
There's no impeller. There's no high pitch.
Right.
Rotational whining kind of sound.
Yep. And although we don't really have I don't know why, but we don't really have official confirmation from AMD on any of this stuff. It appears to be a diaphragm pump.
Yeah, it reciprocates. It does not rotate. It is a plunger type thing that moves back and forth.
Oh yeah.
Josh knows all about reciprocation.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, it's the anti-hot.
It's meant to cool.
Takes the heat away.
Yeah. There was a lot of debate about this block off to the right here. Let's see, on this shot too, and what it does, because it looks odd. If you just open it up, right, there's only one
line going
fluid,
to it.
One liquid connection into it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, this is clearly not part of a loop. That's not how loops work.
Nope.
As far as I know, at least. And the idea here is that this is AMD described it to me as a spring tensioned reservoir.
Yeah.
Right?
Just an expansion volume.
Okay, as an expansion that allows the diaphragm to operate.
Because if you have
push and pull pressure, but it also helps maintain if there is evaporation in the lines over a couple of years.
Right.
There's the reason the spring is there is to make sure that there's always the same amount of pressure going back into the system as maybe the liquid that starts in this pump, this section on the right, gets pushed into the loop.
Yeah, it'll help it. It's a spring, so the tension does fall off, but the idea is it shouldn't. Right. I mean, over time, it should stay. These probably Teflon coated lines and all this. Like it really shouldn't have a major issue with like coolant seeping out. Like modern coolers shouldn't really have coolant seeping out of the lines anymore.
If you remember the Fury X design, they had sort of an additional reservoir on the radiator side.
Yes.
Had that extra little hump. And this is the same principle, just sort of integrated in a different way onto the card.
Yep.
As opposed to.
From what I can tell, this is a very expensive pump design.
Yeah,
it's a very expensive graphics card.
It is.
I mean, it's going to be more expensive than something as simple as just having like, you know, if you think about a rotational kind of pump, it's really just an adaptation on like a fan motor, except it's just driving an impeller.
Right.
Just like a brushless fan motor, which are a dime a dozen these days, right? So, you know,
it's like a Stirling heat pump.
Like kind of. I mean, this takes more effort, you know, to design and build and make quiet.
Start your device.
We didn't have any audio of it like recorded or anything, but like my impression of it, like I don't know if they still make these, but you know, when I was growing up, we had like a little aerator pump on a fish tank, just a 60 hertz, you know, and it had like a little kind of a hum to it.
Yeah, it definitely sounded different.
Yeah,
than
this sounds very close to it. I would even say like the frequency is probably very close to 60 hertz, but it's not like a pitchy kind of sound. It's a very like, you know, like a really low frequency vibration kind of sound instead.
So I think one of the RX Vegas will use a water cooler, and I would be shocked if it used something different than this. So we'll probably get more details on that.
It'd be silly to design two different water coolers.
I did talk with the product manager who I'm blanking on who he said, but he was talking about like one of the other PMs was using it for something, so he just stole the cooler design to use on Vega FE. So we'll see what that actually turns out to be. So here's a couple of interesting things, right? So what's interesting about this card is that, as Alan alluded to, there's two settings for this, and there's a switch on the top, kind of right behind the tubing as it goes into the card. And one of the switch options is for the 350 watt TDP section. One's for 300. Now
if you weren't looking for it, you wouldn't know there was a switch. Correct.
Yeah. It's not like a thing with a light on it or like an arrow that says adjust TDP here.
I mean, even in our picture of the cards, the hoses are actually
they're just kind of always in the right spot. They're just kind of
covering up. You know, covering up the switch.
Now, what's interesting is that AMD ships this in the 300 watt setting.
Yeah.
Which, let me click on this here and see if we can get a little bit bigger. Yeah. So the blue line here is the liquid at 350 watts, and the orange line is 300. And as we look here at the power, this is kind of just using Unigine Heaven as a load. See, we're just under 300 watts kind of on average here, and just under 350 watts on average here. So it's clearly doing the job. What I was going to say is they ship it in the 300 watt mode, though, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, well, it's not just they ship it that way, but there's no directions anywhere. Nothing tells you.
Right.
There's nothing in the box because we got a retail
and there's nothing
one.
in the driver either. This is my other complaint, is that you don't really know what setting you're in unless you have the ability to measure the power draw.
Right.
Right. Like
or if you knew what to expect.
I ran the whole suite of tests. Yeah. This is my fault, right? But I ran the whole suite of gaming tests. And looking at performance, it was like, well, I mean, it's a little bit better than the air-cooled, but whatever. And then I did power consumption last, which I kind of have always done and now will not, and saw that this is only drawing 300 watts. Started my engagement with AMD, and, you know...
Oh, yeah, there's a switch.
They didn't sample this. We bought this card. They weren't sampling anybody. They clearly didn't have like a plan in place for like, oh, Ryan's going to call me with this question.
Yeah.
They weren't really sure what it was supposed to be in. They said, try the switch and see if it goes back. And I did. And now we're at 350. But then I was like, hey, this is supposed to be 375. It's not 350. We had another discussion.
Yeah. And then there was somebody else who dumped a ROM from the card. Yeah. And they posted it. And they only posted the one ROM.
They had run it at 300.
And it was the 300.
So we know that they were all shipping
not only was that their default, but they also weren't even, as we saw on Twitter, wasn't even aware that there was a switch.
And this is somebody who bought the card and was posting benchmarks to Reddit.
Yeah.
So you would expect that to be the type of person that would know about the switch.
Sure.
If it were a thing.
Yeah. So, you know, typical layman probably doesn't even know it exists. Now, the reason
AMD gave me for them doing that is maintaining within spec of PCIe.
Sure.
Right. So the thing is, at 300 watts, they're drawing, this card and the air-cooled barely draw more than like maybe 25 watts through the motherboard slot.
Yep.
Which means the rest of it is coming through not that those,
not the water lines.
Through the water lines, through the 8-pin auxiliary connections, right?
Yep.
And those were only technically rated 150 watts a piece.
Yep.
So by sending it at 300, they can kind of guarantee that any kind of moderate power supply is not going to be impacted or cause stability issues or something like that.
Sure.
In that mode. Whereas in reality, and I think both of us agree, and most of us, I think all of us in this room agree, that the person who's buying this card is probably buying it instead of the air-cooled for the reason of promise of added performance.
Yeah.
And you have to have the added power consumption to really get that. This is a diagram that shows you in the 350 watt mode, this white line being total power consumption. It's kind of right at 340, 350. And then these orange and this red and green line are the two 8-pin power connections. Mm-hmm. They're drawing over 150 watts each. One of them's about 160 and one's like 155.
It's barely over.
Or so. Now, people may call us hypocrites because we made such a big deal about the RX 480.
Yeah.
The problem with the RX 480 was that it was drawing too much through the motherboard.
Yeah.
Through very small traces. Mm-hmm. Very fragile electrical connections.
It was exceeding the actual current rating of the pins of a PCI saw.
Correct.
Whereas pins and conductors in the 8-pin and 6-pin connectors can handle something like 9 amps a piece or something like that.
So even though the spec was going to say a lower amperage total, right? The physical hardware itself can handle way above that. Yeah. So we're way less concerned if somebody's drawing over power on the 8-pin connectors than we would through the PCI Express bus itself. So there's that.
And we said the same thing back in the 480 review. Like we would have preferred for them to go over on the extra power connectors as opposed to the motherboard.
So here is so the blue line is a little bit more. The blue line is the Vega FE Liquid 350 watt because we kind of really focused on that because we think
that's off the top.
Yeah, I'll scroll up in a second. Okay. And then the Vega FE Air is gray. That's the first card we reviewed, the Air. And then you got the 1080 Ti, 1080, and Fury X.
Okay. And
so what you see here is that the blue line is jumping around a bit. This is actually testing Rise of the Tomb Raider and DX12, hovering around the 350 margin.
Sure.
The gray line under 300. The yellow line is the 1080 Ti from NVIDIA. And then these green and red lines at the bottom are the 1080 and the Fury X.
And the gray line would also be similar to the Water Edition, just running with the switch in the other position.
Correct.
Roughly.
Correct. Yeah. And it's also worth noting, well, here's where that difference is. The gray lines, you see these power dips, right, that we saw with the first Vega FE air-cooled?
Yeah.
Those don't exist on the water-cooled, and they don't exist when you're in the 300 watt state
in either mode, doesn't matter.
Because the GPUs are running at such a lower temp.
Yep.
In general, we won't look at Witcher 3. In general, this card is able to keep the GPUs, even at the 375 watt or 350 watt state, under 70C, like 65, 67 degrees Celsius.
Worked very well.
Which is way better, right? And it's a super effective cooler.
Yep.
And the noise wasn't really even noticeable, right?
Bad.
If you wanted, you couldn't get an air-cooled card down that low, but if you're trying to get it to like 75C, you're like, I don't know, 120 dB. That's a lie.
Yeah.
But
and the fan was reasonably quiet too, separate from the pump.
What do you get with those that added power draw? You get these clock speed differences. So again, blue is the liquid card at 350, orange is liquid at 300, and then the gray is the FE and air cooling. And if you see here, the bottom is the air-cooled, and it kind of bounces between two frequencies. The orange bounces between two frequencies a little bit higher, and the blue is two frequencies higher than that. And it's actually able to hit 1600 megahertz the majority of the time.
So is this just with the switch in 350?
No. The blue was 350, the orange was 300, and the gray was the air-cooled.
So in other words, the water-cooled version with the switch in the 350 position is much more often maintains 1600.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And those jumps in that graph look small, but note that, as I say here in the text, I'm going to make sure I get these numbers right. At the 300 watt setting, the liquid cooled card oscillates between 1440 and 1528 megahertz, with the occasional spike to 1600, while the air cooled one goes between 1440 and 1348.
Okay.
While the water cooled one hits 1528 to 1600. So there's it's jumping up.
It's
each iteration of the card kind of goes, and they're kind of wide steps, which is actually a little bit disappointing as well. And hopefully we'll learn some more about that as we get the Vega FE stuff. The performance is, we'll show you that at the end. The overclocking side, we were able to get, we were able to hit, it rated at 1712 megahertz, and it kind of bounced between that and 1600. One thing worth noting, if you have this card, if you buy this card, you put it in 350 watt state, if you just increase the power target by 20%, 15%, it will basically be static at 1600 megahertz.
Okay.
Which is what you really want to do. Now, we did overclocking. We got, maybe say 6 or 7% clock speed changes out of it. What's important to note...
Just to clarify before we go into overclocking.
Well, I'm already there.
So all of the... there were some questions and comments on this. I figured we should clarify anyway, because people are probably curious. But what was the configuration of the card for all of the tests you did in the review, other than the overclocking?
350 watts stock.
Okay. So you just took the card, flipped the switch.
I think there was a typo in the graphs is what they're looking at.
Oh, okay.
I think the frequency is listed wrong.
Okay.
In the 350 watt state.
All right. So it was in probably the state that a typical person would put it into.
Correct. Not overclocked. I just basically flipped the switch.
They just have to be aware of the switch, but
correct.
Okay.
Now, when we went into the overclocking side, my final overclock was I added 25% power and 7% to the clock. What does this do to power consumption? It does a lot, as it turns out. The blue line here is the same card at stock settings. The gray is overclocked. We're up to 440 watts or so of power draw from that card.
That's up there.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
It's the power draw of a lot of dual GPU cards that have existed in the history of time.
Yeah, it's not great, right? And so the performance in general, before I get to the conclusion side of it, we'll just show Dirt Rally or whatever. The performance is better. The air-cooled, even at 300 watts, the liquid-cooled card is faster than the air-cooled card. And at 350 watts, it gets close to the 1080.
Yeah.
It's closer. And in some cases, the difference between this is a good one, right? At 350 watt setting, the liquid-cooled card is 13 or 14% faster than the Vega FE Air, which is a lot.
Yeah.
More than I expected, to be completely honest with you. And it brings it, within 1% of the 1080 at 2560 by 1440, and actually 8% faster than the GTX 1080 in this game. That's the only game that this occurs in. Now, that being said, it's still slower than a GTX 1080 Ti by almost 30%. So
that overall is kind of disappointing, since the 1080 is like a $500 card.
Keep in mind that we're not looking at this as a gaming card. It's not really for the gamers.
I'm with you. But
yes,
it
puts in perspective what AMD is going to have to do with RX Vega to make it
right.
compatible.
That's where I was going with that.
Here's another example: Rise of the Tomb Raider. The liquid-cooled card is 12 to 17% faster than the air-cooled card. Again, pretty impressive, and it brings it basically on par with the GTX 1080. My conclusion to this is that two things: one, we didn't do any professional testing. I just kind of ran out of time.
And one of the tests we tried to run didn't want to work right or something.
Yeah. It crashed, but whatever.
Not the card's fault necessarily.
I wasn't really interested in reviewing this particular card for the professional level stuff. I was more trying to use it as what are kind of our best case estimations for RX Vega. Unless AMD has some trick up their sleeve. What was the thing we heard today? Oh, they've been sandbagging Vega Frontier Edition, which would be an insane idea to me that they would do that.
Yeah,
they would
just sabotage their own product.
They would risk the type of coverage that they would get in order to make some other product look better. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
But this gives us an idea of what we can expect from an RX Vega, right? So maybe we can see it near 1080 performance, which gives AMD the flexibility to charge up to $499 for this card, for the RX Vega card, which is going to be a tough sell if the Vega Frontier Edition liquid is $1499, right? How are they going to make up that difference, really? Is what it comes down to. So I don't know. I open it up to any questions or thoughts from Josh or Jeremy, somebody who they haven't had any input on it yet.
Somebody's muted.
Somebody.
Nope, they're not muted. They're just mute.
I'm not muted.
Is that a meh?
Meh. It's the content creator card.
Yeah.
So
$1,499.
Yeah. I mean, I am a bit confused by, there seems to be an awful large number of people commenting that some, as if the drivers are just going to give you like some kind of 50% gain when you switch.
There's
to
not going to be
gaming.
50%.
Like-
I mean, there's a possibility that drivers can do something.
I mean, I'm sure it'll help some, but
It will. But
It's not gonna
drivers
be-
help
it's- I-
everything all of the time,
I
right?
seriously
Like, that's not-
I seriously doubt it will suddenly be like a 1080 Ti beater or
no,
something.
I don't think they're going to make up 30%.
Like, yeah.
And I would be
30 to 50% improvement in your games. I'd love to see it, but
It would be
Yeah.
great. Sure. I mean, if they could do it, that'd be phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean,
I still think that
go ahead, Josh.
there are features that have not been disclosed. I mean, it's
We're
a
talking like
huge
professional level features, though.
I don't know. It's a huge die. It's got
It is.
4 transistors, but it's got the same amount of shader units as the Fury X.
I mean,
And
what could those be?
I don't
though?
know.
Right? Like, in
True Audio 3.0.
Well,
Maybe some matricey type. What's that stuff that NVIDIA put in
I don't know what we're
with
referring
their
to.
Quadro? I can't remember
I
offhand.
don't know. Are you talking about like for
The fabric
AI
stuff?
deep learning, or are you talking about the tensor processing
Yeah, they've
unit?
got those. The tensor.
This
So-
does not happen.
I doubt that. I know that.
Probably not.
Like, I don't know. They've talked a lot about stuff, like half precision math,
yeah, which is supposed to do really quick.
which would be great. Games don't really utilize it.
True.
That's going to be good for the machine learning, AI side of things for people for software stacks that integrate that. They talked a lot about high bandwidth cache controller. They talked a lot about new geometry capabilities that may not be enabled. If they come up with 20%, I'll be astounded and I'll applaud and
Yeah.
fantastic, right? But
Yeah.
the likelihood of that seems fairly low. But they don't have to beat NVIDIA's 1080 Ti to make a successful card.
That's true.
They need to be competitive at some price point. End of discussion, right? Like,
Yeah.
whether or not they're profitable in the card or not really doesn't matter to the gamers in the short term. In the long term, it may matter to them. But in the short term, all that matters is that you make a card that is good looking, that is going to perform well on the games they want to run, and is going to cost at or below the level of the NVIDIA competition. Power efficiency is just not going to be there. There's nothing that AMD is magically going to be able to do in the next 3 weeks to suddenly make Vega more efficient than Pascal. It's just not going to happen. Luckily, power consumption is just not that big a deal to most people. It's one of many data points.
Well, there were some people
Price and
having
performance are most.
some people were
crucial.
having some success with actually undervolting.
Yeah, I get it, and that
And-
makes sense.
and
And
hitting
people
good
have done that on
clocks.
AMD cards for a while.
Yeah.
AMD has, look, AMD doesn't have as many resources as NVIDIA in terms of engineering,
Sure.
but they're not idiots.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason they run Vega at 1.2 volts and
Yeah.
not 1.05.
Yeah. Probably a margin that they need to have for
Correct.
it to be stable. And,
So,
you know,
so while each individual might be able to do that and improve efficiency, the fact is that NVIDIA, you don't have to do that
Yeah.
to make Pascal better.
Yep.
Right? So AMD's not just going, oh, I don't know, pick 1.2 and let's just go. Right? Like,
oh, darn, we picked the wrong number.
math and science has gone into this decision. I have no doubt. So that's the Frontier Vega Frontier Edition Liquid Cool. We're not going to hear about Vega again until we see RX Vega.
I got a stupid question.
Yeah,
for you.
sure.
You were talking before about the ROM being dumped.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And from the ROM being dumped, you could tell it was in 300 watt versus 350 watt.
Yeah.
No, we could just tell. It
We
was
knew
the
that because
same.
we had both.
We had both files.
We
And the
compared it
one-
to the, we
So-
compared
so
it to
there's-
the air card and it was the same file. We did a diff. You can't decode it as
Wait,
of now.
So
We
there
checked it
actually
out.
is two different firmwares for the various
Yes.
power ratings.
Yeah, that's what the switch is.
Okay.
It's you have to reboot the machine after you've flipped the switch
Okay.
because it boots the other, like a BIOS.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all it is. BIOS selector switch.
Oh, okay.
Just the other one happens to be set up for 350.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on then. Maury posted a review of the ASUS TUF Series Z270 Mark I motherboard. Not going to spend much time on this. This is your Kaby Lake / Skylake mainstream enthusiast motherboard. It's the Tough series, what would we say this is targeted at what, Ken? This is the reliability specialist board, I guess. But they've seemed to have more just made it a motherboard, it seems to me, in the last couple of generations.
They still market like hardware certification lists and increased lifespan of components and stuff like that with the Tough series. But yeah, it's just kind of one of their mid-range motherboards between the Prime channel stuff and the ROG stuff at this point.
Fair enough. So this is, so they do a little bit more on certification of the components, the MOS, the alloy chokes, the capacitors, those types of things. They have like what they call the armor for the motherboard, right? So just like plastic housings that kind of prevent dust from getting in different things. I just, like, the idea is really good. I just don't see somebody, like, if you work in a woodworking shop where dust is like a significant problem for maybe your CAD
it's going to
machine.
find a way to get in there.
Yeah. But my thing was, you're probably not looking at motherboards that have like LEDs and RGB headers on them and stuff like that, right? It just seems odd to me, like this odd combination of consumer feature set and industrial feature set.
Yeah, you'd figure it would have less features.
Don't get me wrong, I'm all about reliability and stability. Like I'm personally, for my machines, I'm more about that than I am about overclocking or anything like that. So, we do what we can. It's still 3D printing friendly. It's still got all the features you want, USB 3.1, Type-C, et cetera, et cetera. And Maury goes through CPU cooler fit. I guess we got to look at one Maury giant cooler photo shoot. We haven't done one in a little while.
That 2 coolers?
No, that's one cooler with 2 fans.
It's the same cooler he's been using for years.
Oh, I'd never noticed the gap.
Yeah, the gap is for a fan.
Like there's a gap.
So
like, it's weird.
Yeah, mind it.
Do we
Alan.
assume the air's going into the video card or away from the video card?
There's no telling.
We're guessing pulling.
I'm guessing it's
That one
you
fan
don't
seems
actually
a little-
use that fan at all.
Yeah, that one fan seems a little bit
that,
starved, so maybe
that
it's a good
thing.
thing that there's 2 fans.
I think you're not supposed to use that. It's more for demonstration purposes, if anything else. So, obviously, Maury goes through the UEFI. He goes through the overclocking capabilities, application benchmarking, overclocking. He was able to get up to 5.1 gigahertz with the 7700K with the 4.8 gigahertz ring bus. Yeah, and memory running at 3733. 1.35 volt memory voltage, 1.34 volt CPU voltage. So pretty good results. It is a moderately priced motherboard at $199, right? Considering we've been talking a lot about X399, X299, and that kind of stuff, $199 seems like a damn bargain these days. So, lack of UEFI RGB LED configuration was a negative, according to Maury. No, I lied. No RGB 12-volt headers.
This is bullshit.
I made that up. I was mistaken about that.
No, 12-volt.
CMOS battery placement is on the strengths. On the strengths.
All right.
So there you go. What else we got coming up on the list? Josh, why is there a robotic-looking lady on my website?
Because Sylvia's mother said Sylvia's happy.
I don't know what that means.
Don't. Oh, damn it.
Some people are just too young or uneducated.
Alan looked at me like he was confused,
40
too.
cents more
I
for the
didn't
next
get it.
3 minutes.
Minutes.
Please, Mrs. Adria. God.
Just tell me about the damn thing we're looking at.
Right.
No.
So anyway, Cal
You
Simpson.
don't deserve it.
No, you don't deserve it. Cal Simpson from he's England. He's a guy that I've been following on Twitter here for a while. He talked to the people who have developed SILVIA. SILVIA is an intelligence on command conversational AI. And they've done a tremendous amount of work to make it very compact, accessible to games, applications, Android, iOS, PC, all of these things. It can go in as small as, I think, like 5 or 10 megs of memory space. And it allows this conversational AI that apparently does fairly well. Is it perfect? Probably not. But there's a lot of details in here about the thinking behind the developers, what they're attempting to do, how well they're actually doing it, and where really they're aiming at this. So we've got, conversational AI, Echo, Google Dot, Siri, some of these other things. And some do well, some do poorly. I think Jeremy had talked about a few things that he'd experienced himself. And some of our commenters have made some good comments as well. Like, hey Siri, what's the weather like? And it can get you what you want. Then you ask something a little bit more difficult, and next thing you know, you're listening to Steve Nicks when you really just wanted a cup of coffee. But this is one thing that they're working on, and it's another form of AI that we will see integrated in a lot more applications. Kind of one of the killer apps that they're really looking at is the VR Crowd, where you can actually interact with characters in the game or application, and it feels much more natural. So that's kind of the whole group, and they put a lot of tools in place to actually try to hit those marks. So it's an interesting interview, and I apologize for me sounding so
like an AI.
No, like William Shatner.
Because you're still getting your echo back.
I'm getting my echo back, and it's annoying the
Just
living
plug
crap
your
out of me.
ears. while
That's
you
true.
talk.
Take your headphones off.
Yeah, but
while
when
you're
I do
talking
that,
to us.
the only thing I say is la 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 la.
That's all I ever hear.
That kind
Is
of
that,
works
wait,
pretty
is
much.
that different than what you say? Oh, crap. All these years.
All these years.
All these years.
So anyway, read the interview. It's a 3-page, pretty long interview. He took a lot of time with the guy, transcribed it all, looked at some interesting pictures. If you remember back in the day when Epic released their Unreal Engine, they really made a huge splash by releasing Unreal Engine Editor.
Yes.
And they're doing much the same thing with theirs. And so they've got a lot of tools to really help even new programmers and people who have bought this or licensed it to get their product out quickly with a pretty robust set of tools.
Sorry, I just sneezed and tried not to.
His head exploded.
I'm sure you did, but I just keep hearing myself talk to myself, which is really annoying. And there's
did the phone echo back too, Josh?
Yeah.
Phone's ringing, dude.
Someone rang his bell. No, what blew me away is on that last slide, they say that it's a 5 meg footprint or less.
Yeah. I mean,
underneath the Unity bit. That's tiny.
Is it all
and I'm
cloud-based
assuming,
then, or is it?
no, it might just be pure. It's pure logic. Like you don't, it's not like graphical assets and like typical game stuff.
It's
just
modular.
Yeah, but it's just like
Sure,
a logic.
So you can
but look
add
at how large my
features
print
to it as
driver
you
is.
want.
Well, but print drivers have a bunch of, crap in them, like bloated crap added to them.
Yeah, like printing.
Like you really don't need.
and it can't find a way to break things in a brand new way every single day with just 5 megs. I mean, you need a couple hundred megs to be able to screw up that badly.
Nobody will ever need more than 5 megabytes for artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Write it down.
Yeah.
Write it down. Very cool. All right, let's get into some news of the week. Jeremy, there's a handful of items on here with your name attached. You can now get a Dell laptop that charges wirelessly. Did we talk about this last week? I feel like we talked about this last week.
We might have talked about it in the office last week.
Maybe. A
you might
Dell
have chatted
laptop
with
that
it.
recharges wirelessly, but it will cost you. Are you talking about it's going to cost me money, or is it going to cost me features? What's it going to do?
Radiation.
Well, I mean, it could cost you your fingertips if you put it on a metal table. They do mention that don't put the charging pad on a metal table.
Oh, well, yeah.
So there you go. But no, the problem is that like the base model of the 7285, which is this hybrid tablet that they've got going, is $1,200. That's your utter base model, which for what it is decent.
Huh.
But if you want to wirelessly charge it, you've got to spend $380 on the wireless charging keyboard, which is different from the default keyboard, and another $200 for the charging mat.
That's over $500.
So you're adding almost $600 to the price of it.
Yeah.
That's
on the other
significant.
On the other hand, it's sitting there pushing out 18.5 volts. So that's more than enough to keep a Dell charged. So you'll be able to use it indefinitely as long as you don't spill a drink or,
yeah,
lick it with a moist finger.
Yeah, it's 30 watts of charging wirelessly.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Like, it's a serious amount.
Yeah. It's probably multiple pads, I would imagine, multiple zones or something on there.
I'm still waiting for those damn Logitech PowerPlay accessories to come out.
Well, I mean, they're probably still trying to make sure they can make them without them.
No. If they've announced them, right? So they're productized, all that type of stuff. I just want them to sell them to me.
Yeah.
Or give them to me, whichever works. I do want to mention.
And the other thing that kind of bugs me about it is,
go ahead.
You got a Patreon?
No, go
or
ahead.
Should I wrap up?
No, go ahead.
The only thing that bugs me about this charging mat is it's not a freaking dock. If you're going to do this, you got to carry a power cord around anyways to plug the mat in. So it's not helping you be mobile. It's obviously going to sit on a desk and never move. So
right.
Add some friggin' peripheral.
Yeah, a little bit of Y gig on that would be great.
Right?
Yeah. Agreed.
I mean, what is the point though at that point? Like,
I
don't know.
This is a mat that you're going to put a laptop on, and if you were going to plug it into a dock,
correct.
Anyway, right?
No, I'm with you. I didn't even think about that, but without having, like, if it were a wireless charging connectivity dock, that's perfect.
Sure.
But yeah, just wireless. Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, like, you're one step away from just pogo pins. You know what I mean? Just you have to put it on a thing anyway.
But you could turn it and rotate it a little bit.
Like,
maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
And what happens if you got a wirelessly charged phone that gets a little too close to that mat? Because I don't think they charge at quite that high of a wattage.
Well, I'm sure it just wouldn't negotiate and start charging.
It wouldn't.
It's just.
I mean, maybe it's smart enough to negotiate down.
Do you want to find out?
It's just so much money for something.
I want to find out, but not with my hardware. No.
It seems like nothing. It seems like nothing more than a novelty for $500.
You gotta start somewhere,
I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yes, we did have a Patreon come in. This was from Rupert Steele, pledged $5. Thank you,
$5.
Rupert Steele, for the support. We greatly, 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 greatly appreciate it. A splash of water can open it up. That's what I'm drinking, except it's a splash of Diet Coke. I apologize for the sniffles that I've had this evening. I'm trying to drink bourbon to fix the ailments. A splash of water. This is the ROG Poseidon GTX 1080 Ti Platinum. That's a lot of lights and shit going on.
What's that grid of?
Yeah, what is
orange
this over here, Jeremy? Do you know what this is?
those are the hailing lights.
That's the sexy bit of the card.
Okay. So this is a hard SCP review that they did. They attached a Coolance Exos liquid cooling system. Man, those are old.
We have one.
We have 3 of them in the back. We have 3 of them.
Exos cooling systems?
Yeah. 2 silver ones and a black.
Oh, I thought we just had one.
Nope. Huh. You're just not looking through
And
the
here you are
shelves
mining
closely,
dry
man.
like a peasant.
Yeah. So what stands out about this particular card or testing that they did other than this? Well, honestly, that looks like a freaking brake light from a car.
I know.
right?
It's like a
but it has the
power
ROG.
slot
It's like a
long.
plastic cover behind the lights with the ROG logo in the center of it. You can barely make it out in that picture, but
yeah, it's hard to see.
Man, that's like
But anyway, so this is part 2 of the review.
Oh, okay.
This is a hybrid cooled card, so you don't have to water cool it. You can just let it go as is. And they did that first. The second review was plugging it into the coolants.
Yes.
And it was interesting. So just straight out plugging it in, the minimum clock they saw in the water cooled pretty much matched the highest clock they saw at base on the air cooled.
And it just went there on its own?
It makes a freaking difference. Yeah.
That's cool.
And not screwing around with it or anything, just plug her in and away it goes.
Yeah.
At the top end, I mean, they ended up hitting 2.076 gigahertz. it was higher than the air-cooled card, but not significantly high.
Yeah, 70 megahertz is not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you can hit 2 on air, like usually.
I mean, clearly they did. They just said
they did with that card. Well, I mean, sometimes it varies from card to card, but you can usually hit 2 on a TI.
But it got significantly quieter, and like I say, just plug her in at stock. All of a sudden, your max clock suddenly become your min clock.
Sweet.
Observed in game.
Gotcha.
Decent for hardcore overclockers. Don't go this way, because it's.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like almost 2-for-1 devices. It's not perfect at either one, but it's a nice mix of the two.
Yeah.
So
over 2 gigahertz is pretty great on a 1080 Ti.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole lot of performance, guys.
It just kind of seems like a card begging for a market to me.
The Poseidon?
Yeah, like I understand how the flexibility of being able to go to water if you want to go to water is cool, but
see what he did there?
Yeah, I see what he did there.
I've been kind of toying with the same thing. I have a Founders Edition 1080 Ti, and now we're at the point where EVGA sells a water block with a self-contained loop.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm more likely to do that than water cool my entire system out of the blue. Like, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
it seems like
basically
people who already know they want to do custom water cooling are already buying a CPU block at the same time, making sure they get a motherboard that they can get a block for the VRMs.
I don't disagree.
It seems like it comes with the block on the VRMs.
Yeah, like
this is much like the argument of why do you buy a motherboard that has the ability to support SLI? Because maybe I'll go get a second card one day, and I don't want to waste my investment. This is the same thing. And I agree that that's probably a small subset of people that actually ever act on that. But the idea of providing that flexibility, I think probably entices quite a few people.
Yeah.
So we also have the Oculus Pacific bringing VR to the masses. This is a rumor coming out that was basically that Facebook was going to have, or they were building a new Oculus headset that was self-contained VR, powered by Qualcomm. So not something that hooks up to a PC, not something that requires cameras to be configured or set up or whatever. This is basically take the Gear VR, but make it a non-removable device headset. And this shouldn't be really a shocking venture to people, because Qualcomm has been out there banging the drum of these VR SDKs, not SDKs, that's software, VR, like reference platforms, essentially, with Snapdragon in them. What is interesting is that, they're working on, like, that Oculus, kind of the progenitor of VR in this iteration, right? That, you had to buy, what was the cheapest budget VR PC we built when Oculus first launched? $800? $1,000?
Yeah.
No, like 1,000.
I think you managed.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think you managed just under 1,000.
Yeah, and they're saying this is going to be $200? Well, that's the rumor?
So, I mean, that's not the comparison to make between the Rift and the gaming PC. It's the comparison to make between a high-end smartphone.
So a high-end smartphone plus the Gear VR.
How the hell could they make a high-end smartphone for $200?
Yeah, I don't
like,
know.
You can't get rid of the display.
Purpose built.
I mean, the industrial design, you could be, I guess, less advanced with the cooling and stuff like that. But like, you still have to put the SoC, you still have to put the display in it, put a battery in it. If you're to be taking a loss on it.
If I was thinking this through, a VR-centric device is going to be more expensive, right? Because it's going to have the highest end parts you can buy.
Yeah.
CPU, GPU. It's going to have a bigger battery. It's going to have the best screen, right? But I guess it doesn't have to be. They could just be building moderate capability systems, and pricing them at this, just try to get mass market appeal to stuff.
I guess.
And 2 decent screens as opposed to one big good one.
Maybe.
So all of a sudden you're saving on the glass.
Yeah, you might go to.
There are
maybe
cheats,
get that cheaper.
and this one, the $200 model, the first one they're releasing, because it's just a rumor right now, right? It won't have positional tracking on it at all. They're talking about a second version to come out, which will.
Sure, but now
so it's
there's a Gear
obviously
VR.
trimmed down to the minimum.
Yeah, okay. I guess I could see that. If I were giving these groups advice, it would be, do not release a crappy product. just to sell to. But I mean, like, a crappy GPU from AMD isn't going to kill the graphics add-in market. A crappy VR headset still has the capability to kill the current VR market, right? And we have to wait for another,
which is already kind of wounded as it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Still pretty interesting stuff. So, Thermaltake's Contac. I think didn't we do a review of one of these? The Contac Silent 12.
I don't think so.
No,
It doesn't sound familiar.
Okay.
I looked at the keywords and it didn't come up.
Who is this result from, Jeremy? This is from Tech Report. Contac, not Contact. Contac.
They forget a T.
Silent 12 heatsink.
For $25.
Anything? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So we're getting into the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo line. Anything stand out about this particular cooler then, or?
More or less the exact same thing as the Wraith that you can pick up, except quieter.
Makes sense.
And super cheap, so you don't have to pay the extra bit for the Wraith, which is often a little more than the $25.
Right.
The blades on those fans do like some weird little dimple
Yeah,
thing.
there's
it looks like they kind of.
Yeah, it's like it's like a ripple or something in it.
Everybody's been trying to figure out how to make fan blades better for about 100 years.
I mean, I wonder
now.
if that actually makes it quieter or not, or if it's just like, we're just going to make it look cool. Or
all you have to do is
Well,
convince a couple of people that it improves airflow.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to increase turbulence. It may increase noise, but you'll get better air separation.
Yeah.
I'm just bouncing to see where it was. So yeah, they went between 26 dBs to 29 at load.
Your dBs.
The Wraith starts at 31 and goes to 39.
Gotcha.
If nothing else, it's nice to have a heatsink with an AM4 bracket in the box, because right now, if you buy a lot of coolers, they'd send off and get the bracket, and you need proof of purchase to get the bracket, so you can't build your PC until you go through a 2-week process to get the bracket.
That's what it is? Okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty
ridiculous.
They won't just send you one because they don't want to send
Or you
everyone
get
one.
inventive and kill your die.
I want a free thing, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. I might buy an AM4 one day.
Am I missing something on here on our rundown? We don't have the Threadripper stuff. We don't have it. We don't have it on the rundown because that posted the morning the podcast went live. After fact.
We did miss that.
So stay tuned to the end of the episode, everybody, where we can talk about Threadripper pricing, because we're going to do that.
But what if I don't
That's
want
our last
to?
story. And in fact, we'll just kind of run through these things a little bit quicker here to make sure we get to it. And it doesn't matter what you want to do, Josh. That's.
No.
I mean, did it sound like your home life right there? I'm sorry, I didn't really mean to come off that way.
Oh,
Josh, just keep listening to yourself in the corner over there.
That's a low blow.
Counting cores, Intel on the bench, $50 difference between the 7700K and the 7800X. What are we looking at, Jeremy? This is another external review from TechSpot. Yes, go ahead.
guess what? Frequency is still king on the vast majority of things.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, just because it's got more cores doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be great.
Let's click over. He has a player on their Battlegrounds benchmarks. I'm going to look through them.
Yeah, this was the
That
first
game
time
needs
I'd
a lot
ever
of CPU.
seen that.
That's a very CPU
Like I'd never seen that
game.
one benchmarked.
Oh, really? Okay. Let me take a look here.
Well, you certainly don't.
I mean, it'd be difficult to benchmark since it's a multiplayer-only game.
Oh,
They are, yeah.
that's kind of the thing.
But
Yeah. All right,
it
so
doesn't run well. I haven't tried the latest patch, but it was very CPU dependent. Before.
yeah, the 7700K, which is let me see if I can make that better. There we go. 126 frames per second average versus 98 on the 7800X.
Yeah.
So showing a pretty, and even the 1% frame time was 88 versus 70. And I don't like that they call that minimum frame rate 1%. That's not what that means, but understood nonetheless. Where meanwhile, take a look at this game that has no difference whatsoever
Doesn't care.
between those processors.
Yeah.
Oh man. that's-
Ashes of Singularity, Mass Effect Andromeda, same damn thing. The only ones that 7800 was better for were Quantum Break and Prey by 2%.
Yeah, Far Cry Primal, huge
2%.
difference in Far Cry Primal.
There might be a $50 price difference only between those two chips, but like, isn't the rest of the platform difference?
I mean, it can be, yes.
Like
X299, I would yes.
These are not two different chips to plug in the same board.
Correct.
In other words,
you can get 270 boards as expensive as X299, but yes, the average X299 board is way more expensive than the average 270.
So in
board.
reality, it's probably like $100 difference or
more.
Or more.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Which actually is a disservice to the story here about the 7800X performing performing lower in the gaming side of things.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, all these benchmarks are done at 1080p, which is perfectly reasonable. Keep in mind, if you go to 25 by 14 or 4K,
put even less burden on the CPU.
Then your GPU is going to be even more important. So, take it for what you will. So,
it would probably,
a good story nonetheless.
It'd probably actually just even out all the results no matter what.
Yeah.
If you went to like 4K.
Yeah.
You'd be benchmarking your GPU at that point.
Yeah, you'd just be benchmarking the GPU.
This is an interesting rumor. Ken, you wrote this up. Intel is possibly launching quad-core Kaby Lake R CPUs for ultra portables. This would be a shift from what we have today, which is everything that's a processor for a laptop that's not like a gaming laptop is a 2-core 4-thread, right?
Yeah. So again, as we were just talking about these 15-watt processors, they've been dual-core hyper-threaded parts, and the rumors have been churning. There was a little mention in a Computex slide deck from Intel about upcoming 8th generation performance, in which they essentially said there was a 4-core part in the 15-watt sort of power target, and we've seen now a leak of this sort of product roadmap back at the end of last year that mentions Kaby Lake R as being a 15-watt 8th gen processor with 4-core 8-thread in the second half of 2017, which we're getting into. And then most recently, we saw a leak of an Acer Swift 3 notebook that mentions the i5-8250U, which the blank 250U is a very sweet spot 15-watt part that from Haswell on, a ton of notebooks have used, MacBook Airs, XPS 13s, stuff like that. And then we did a little bit more digging and found on Geekbench in their database, there are actually a lot of 8250U results. If you click the link in the paragraph above it, you can actually go to the page, see ASUS, HP,
UX430 UAR. I've never heard of that machine before.
Weird. It's almost like the next generation of all these machines. If you scroll, there are a couple more vendors there. So it seems like everyone is testing this part. Yeah. Dell, HP, ASUS in the machines you expect.
A new Dell XPS 13, you say, huh?
Yeah. Which is kind of weird because 9360 is the current model number. So it sounds like it'd be more slight revision than a generational redesign.
Oh, I see.
Which might make sense for it being just a Kaby Lake respin as opposed to Coffee Lake, as a lot of people were kind of thinking this 8250U part would be. But if you go back to the article...
Quad-core hyper-threaded.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go back to the article, I did a quick performance analysis. So let's scroll up.
Oh, where?
Up. Down.
Down.
A little bit to the right.
Underneath the photo.
Too far right.
It's a 54% increase in multi-thread CPU performance and a 7% increase in single-thread performance against the 7200U and the XPS 13 in Geekbench.
Right. The key will be how and in what direction does this affect the battery life?
Well, it shouldn't affect the battery life if it's a 15-watt part still.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, why have multiple 15-watt parts at all, right? Like, there's a difference there, but I don't know.
Well, they can charge you more for the higher clock speed ones.
Oh.
This is a 1.6 base, 3 point something turbo, I forget.
That's a huge gap.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's what you want, right? Like, ideally, that's what you want.
If you have 4 cores running, it's definitely only going to clock at 1.6.
Correct.
15 watts.
Yeah. I mean, but I'd be curious if you have all quad cores running, for how long does it take for it to clock down to that? That's really what's key, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're doing some activity that takes 3 seconds, like a Photoshop filter or something like that, or a Premiere like effect adding or something like that, right? If you can use those quad cores for 5 seconds at full speed,
that'd be very nice.
That's doubling of your performance, right? In theory. So yeah, that's pretty interesting stuff. So
yeah, I mean it's it's nice because the sort of lowest power quad-core processor you could get from Intel is currently a 35-watt part, so more than double the power out of the 15-watt parts. So it would be interesting to see what this means for Ultrabooks, who have been very stagnant in their performance since Haswell and that sort of generation. They've gotten better in battery life, but performance has been, a couple of percentage points increase.
All right. Very cool. All right, Jeremy, you've got a couple more in here. We got to run through more glass holes.
Yep. If at first you don't succeed, go to the enterprise market.
I like it. I like that.
So that's what they did. This will be a competitor to the HoloLens. They're giving us very little information whatsoever about it, apart from they've doubled the camera.
One, not like a repurposing.
No, it's a new version. So It's got an 8-megapixel camera with a red light that turns on when you're recording, which kind of needed to be on the first version, and a little bit of Wi-Fi bandwidth increase, but that's pretty much all they're doing.
They said it was an SoC
that we know
as well.
of. On the other hand, that's about all they really need to do for what they're talking about, whereas if you're working in a factory, you need to be able to see inside that little bit that you're trying to fix. The only thing that fits in is your arm.
Right.
Or prototyping design. So, I mean, it makes sense. It's going to compete against the HoloLens, which runs just short of $6,000. So I think we've got a rough idea what the price is going to be like. So we'll see if this one works. And then the good news is you won't see it in the streets and in the bars as much as you used to.
So Wired actually had a really good article about this, a really in-depth article this week, where they've they've had this revised glass for a while now, and they've been selling it to enterprise customers for $1,300 to $1,500. So it's significantly cheaper than HoloLens. People, after sort of the public failure of the first glass, these companies kept developing apps and kept using the sort of public version, and then went to Google and said, hey, we find this to be valuable in this certain application. We would like some more of these, please. Would you make them? And they've kind of revised them. So now you get like frames of safety glass in it, so you can wear it on the shop
like
floor.
This picture, yeah.
Also in that article, in that Wired article, there's a video about like some consulting company and Google and Boeing, and they have this application where for doing wiring harnesses of airplanes, they can have their technicians wearing the glass, and they can look up the schematics and view it on the Google Glass instead of having to go over to a laptop, type in the part number. They use voice search. They look at the schematic. Sense. They plug in the wires. They can double check stuff. They make sure they can watch the video on how the assembly is supposed to be made if they aren't sure about something. Yeah. Just like really cool sort of applications for factories.
I've never been a doubter of the usability of this technology when it gets implemented. I think it's easier to implement when you have like these extreme verticals of manufacturing, or you mentioned like DHL delivery. Like if you're a UPS driver, right, this is a perfect thing to have. That's going to give you your directions. It's going to tell you like, hey, you've got a pickup. Here's how big they are. Like this constant stream of information that's helping you. If you're a garbage man that comes to collect garbage at 2:47 in the morning, and you need to tell people that they didn't have their garbage out who puts garbage out at 2:47 in the morning?
Not me.
Man, sorry, personal issue. Very cool. This is an interesting rumor. Corsair could be purchased for over $500 million. By the rumor is, according to Reuters.
Reuters.
It's Reuters. Raiders.
Exactly.
Reuters.
Just call it luxury yacht.
They claim to have two anonymous sources. The Corsair is, quote, in advanced discussions to be acquired by Eagle Tree Capital, which I have never heard of. So I'm not sure really what to make of this. They claim the transaction goes through in its current form will be worth more than $500 million. Eagle Tree has several backers, including Goldman Sachs and other ones I've never heard of. So we posted the story, and all the reaction on Twitter was like super negative. Like, oh, there goes everything that made Corsair good. Might as well start flushing Corsair down the drain, blah, 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 blah. Things like that, right? I don't think these people realize Corsair has been 50% owned by private equity for like the last 3 years.
Yep.
They're already owned by private equity. Yeah.
Say again, Josh.
They're not a public corporation.
Correct.
They were going to try that.
There were lots of talks about going IPO, and it just never happened. They're 50% owned by Andy Paul and 50% owned by some other private equity firm right now. And this buyout would be basically one firm buying up 100% of the company. Now, what that means for the products and everything is totally unknown. I've known people at Corsair for almost 2 decades now, and in fact, my first ever meeting as a media person with a company representative was with somebody from Corsair.
Okay.
In 1999, I met with somebody at a restaurant inside the Sahara Casino, and and I was
back when they only did memory.
I was 18 years old. Oh yeah, they only did memory. I don't think that anything would really change in this, but you just never know, and that's what people's fear is. But it might just be that this company wants to buy it and they want to take it to this IPO and they want to do these other things. So Corsair is a huge brand and a extremely valuable brand. Obviously, if they're upwards of $500 million valuation in this,
but it's kind of a small company still.
Yeah. I mean,
they don't manufacture really anything.
No,
except a couple of memory.
Yeah, they do. Some in-house memory not memory packaging.
Binning.
No, they'll do onto the modules themselves. I'm trying to SMT work essentially.
They have SMT lines.
Yeah,
in California.
But they sell power supplies. They don't manufacture them directly. They work with manufacturers. They don't have the facilities that are making the chassis. They don't have facilities that are making the water cooling products, those types of things. That's what you're referring to, right, Josh?
Correct. They outsource a lot, but they have done really well in getting, gosh, I'm trying to think of the exact.
They just have branded and marketed themselves perfectly.
They had an excellent way of acquiring components and getting somebody to put them together how they want, getting the products. We see.
They have a hand in the design of all of it and stuff.
They do.
Oh, sure. They go in.
They're not just rebranding a bunch of other companies.
They're not. Yeah, their power supplies aren't just rebranded. Their cases are clearly not just rebranded. Right. They do the engineering and then they find somebody who can make it for them. Yeah. So they don't have to invest in the production facilities themselves.
Which works apparently. It's working
which is fine. Yeah. And I don't think anybody on this podcast or listening really could doubt the fact that Corsair has just had a significant impact on the enthusiast market over the last decade or more, right?
Yeah.
When they first branched out from memory, here's the thing. What was the first thing they made after memory, Josh?
Boats? I think cases.
No.
They started off in
I don't think it was cases.
They made coolers before cases.
Yeah, and they made power supplies
coolers
before that, I think.
They made air coolers.
I think they made a couple of air coolers.
They made 2 air coolers that
before they made the 800D.
Remember those water coolers that had the problem with corroding?
I don't remember that.
That was
don't remember those.
They used multiple metals in the loop.
Yeah,
so
I don't think that
after
was
about
first.
So they
90 days, it stopped working.
They started with power supplies like 10 years ago. Easy.
Oh yeah, probably power supplies.
I would think it's power supplies. If I were to guess, that would be their second major product line.
Yeah.
I was going to look now. Corsair is also a transportation company, as it turns out. So if you look up Corsair on Wikipedia, that's not the same thing.
And I could be wrong, but I thought it was sort of like some Seasonic IP or something, or one of the better power supply. I think they did.
Seasonic has been an ODM.
I think they did some kind of partnership or something with one of the better power supply makers at the time, which is what kicked it all off. Which is why I think their power supply thing started off with really strong.
Oh, you're all wrong. It was USB flash drives.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Then it was PSUs.
That's correct.
Okay, I don't count flash drives as a major product category.
I don't think that list is chronological there, Jeremy, because pre-built high-end gaming PCs is before liquid CPU cores.
That's not a 10-year-old.
Remember the Flash Voyagers? It was rubberized. You could put them through a washer.
Yeah,
I agree that Ken's assessment of that list not being in the correct and not being completely in order is correct. But I would agree.
They did make flash drives forever.
Flash drives have been a thing for a while. That's an easy successive
Going from
memory step
memory
thing. Yeah.
The Flash.
Yeah. That pre-built high-end
they
gaming
started making
PCs.
them so they could give you their PR on the flash drive about their new
Right,
up and
that's
coming
why they
PSU
started
lines.
making them, right? Save money down the line. Jeremy, you wrote this post up, Josh. You'll see what your comments are. TSMC moving to 7 nanometer. They talked about tooling up for deep UV equipment.
Gross.
It's not EUV. It's deep UV.
So EUV
Go
is
ahead,
the
Jeremy.
Samsung. DUV is TSMC.
No.
No, I had that backwards.
Neither is correct.
Oh, damn it.
What is this deep term supposed to mean? Because that's not like
Deep ultraviolet light.
it's not how those
Yeah,
terms work.
DUV is not extreme.
Correct.
Okay.
UV.
It's
And so
excimer.
instead of being, go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh no, you're much better at this than I am. You know
Okay,
your process
EUV
tech.
does something like 13.5 nanometers wavelengths,
Uh huh.
and DUV can do 248 to 193.
Which is
So
okay.
it's better than visible light and the
Right.
blue lasers, I think, that they use now.
Right.
But it's not as good as EUV, and it's not as complex.
Okay. Just wish they would have.
Yeah, so it's more mature. So it's sort of a bet on TSMC's part of let's go with something we know works. Is probably going to give us decent yields, and give ourselves time to tool up to EUV and let Samsung go through all the troubleshooting. I mean, sure, they'll hold on to industry secrets, but there's a lot you'll learn from the process.
Intel's going to do most of the troubleshooting.
Also true. Well, they already are.
They have
aren't
the most EUV machines in the world.
Like 5.
Pretty much.
Exactly.
All 5 of them.
So if shit goes bad, that really actually hurts the product, the product line. Boom, like you go down a couple of percentage, and all of a sudden you're not able to sell a lot of stuff. TSMC, they're cranking out stuff left, right, and center. So they're like, we'll ease our way into 7N, which is what they're calling it, because why call it 7 nanometer?
Because it's not.
To be honest, it's become a marketing term.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that actually makes sense, because Samsung is saying 2018, boom, we're spitting it out. TSMC's 2018, but we're doing the DUV, and we'll work into the extreme once we get deep into the market.
All right.
We'll see which one pays off.
So this is the part where we're going to talk about Threadripper real quick. Before we do that, Randall Steffens has become a new Patreon pledge of our new patron at
I know that guy.
$5.
That name's familiar.
I know that guy.
Well, it's Maxius
Yes.
in IRC.
And he didn't put anything
And he's
obscene?
number 400.
Yeah, you missed your chance, man.
Nice. Randall Steffens shows up in my Facebook feed and Twitter feed.
Yep.
That's how I know Randall Steffens.
That's how I know.
So thank you very much, Randall. Greatly appreciated your $5 contribution. Now, before we get into our picks of the week, the rundown says we're done. We're not done.
Not done.
The second most important news story of the week is here now.
But wait, there's more.
AMD announced Ryzen Threadripper model numbers, clock speeds, and pricing. We have the Threadripper 1950X and the Threadripper 1920X. Flagship performance at $999. So there's Dr. Lisa Su and not Dr. John Taylor. Sorry, John. Talking in a video, basically announcing all of these bits of information. Here's what we got. The 1950X is the 16-core part, 32 threads, 3.4 gigahertz base clock, 4.0 gigahertz turbo clock,
Impressive.
40 megs of cache, DDR4 quad channel, 2666, 64 PCI lanes, 180 watt TDP, pretty high, $999 price tag.
Actually 180 watt?
I don't know the answer to that.
Oh.
The 1920X is 12 cores, 24 threads, 3.5 base, 4.0 boost, quad channel, 64 lanes, 180 watts, $799. So this first table here shows it in comparison to all the Intel parts. So here's what's interesting, right? At $999, the 16-core Threadripper goes up against the Core i9-7900X.
Yep.
Which was just launched, Skylake X, etc. It's a 10-core part. So we're talking about 60% more cores, the same amount of money, 60% more threads. Now the base clock is close. The boost clock on the Intel part is higher, especially when you get into like single and dual threaded. They go up to 4.5. The AMD's at only at 4.0. And we know that the IPC of the AMD Zen architecture is lower than the Intel Skylake.
Yeah, not
parts.
horribly lower, but it is lower.
I mean, it's a noticeable amount.
Yeah.
Right. So if you take in that IPC difference plus 300 to 500 megahertz faster on Intel, it's easy to like.
Could be like 20%.
We can talk about the performance now. The single-threaded and lightly threaded applications are going to be faster on a 7900X.
Yep.
Even though it has 60% less cores.
Yep.
Than on the Threadripper 1950.
Yep, because you're not using all the cores.
Because you're not using all of them, and the frequency and IPC matter more. When you heavily load the work down, if you're doing in video encoding, you're doing
something specifically
3D rendering,
something that uses all the cores.
Something that's using a lot, or several applications at one time that are using lots of cores.
Sure.
You're going to see better performance in the 1950. And even the 1920, the benchmark that AMD showed in their video is Cinebench, kind of the common multi-threaded workload, showed the 1920X, so the 12-core versus the 10-core. And you can see that the score on the 12-core was 2400, the score on the 10-core from Intel was 2100. So a difference of some percent here that I apparently didn't, 12%. Right, so the 12-core Threadripper is 12% faster than the 10-core Skylake X, which by my math, there's a 20% core count difference.
Yeah.
Take into account the IPC delta.
Right, chips away.
Brings it down a little bit. You're about 12%. It kind of all makes sense.
Yeah.
They did show the performance of the.
So what's the price difference between the 10-core and
$200?
So the 12-core AMD part is cheaper.
$200 less expensive than the Skylake X part.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they did show the 1950X doing the same result, and it had a score of 3,046. So here is kind of a Cinebench score. Note that the green results were not tested by me, so we're taking AMD at their word on these results, right?
Their results into.
But you can see clearly, like that's a 41% difference between the 1950X up here and the 7900X down here. That's a significant gap.
Yeah.
Right. So AMD is supposed to announce these, I think, on the 27th, 28th, 29th, something in that time frame, maybe 30th. Lisa Su said in the video, that they're going to be on sale in, quote, early August.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means 1st or 8th. Not really sure.
I mean, I wonder what Intel's going to have to do there, because it's not like they can really have this, single-threaded performance argument when you have a product line that's going all the way up into 12 and 14 and 16 core parts or whatever.
I mean, so I think if you're Intel at this point, so AMD is going to come out with this product. They're going to talk about we're the core count leader. We're the multi-threaded core count and multi-threaded performance leader.
Yeah.
Intel's already shown their cards. They showed here's what our product roadmap and pricing is going to be. They didn't show specs yet, but they did show.
They didn't show the clocks for the higher end.
They didn't show clocks, but they showed cost and core count.
But we kind of know it's not like the clocks are going to go up.
No, they're definitely not.
Right.
It's just a matter of how much down they go.
Or if they can manage to keep it equal.
So if I'm Intel, you probably don't talk again until you have at least a 16 core part.
Yeah.
And then you talk for sure when you have the 18 core part, because then you recapture the most cores for the consumer argument. You kind of ignore the price. And you find the cases where the multi-threaded performance is beneficial. Now, if I'm Intel, I'm also kind of like, I'm looking for the cases where lightly threaded, moderately threaded, like maybe 4 to 8 threads are happening at one time.
Yeah.
And maybe these are very common workloads.
Well, they are if you're not doing specific tasks that load down all the cores.
So then you maybe show that in a 10-core processor versus the 16-core AMD, and you find an advantage. I don't know. I'm just kind of making this up as I go. But like if I'm AMD's PR marketing, perf labs, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, okay, maybe I'm playing PUBG and I'm recording it and I'm streaming it. And I also have my Discord server running over here. And that's like 6 to 8 threads of work, but it's not 16 or 32.
Yeah.
And maybe you have an advantage there, right? That's the kind of stuff you look for.
And something else to consider is that Cinebench is really not core-to-core latency sensitive.
No, it is not.
It's like almost the best example of something that is not sensitive to that.
It is very much.
It does not care really about the latency from core to core, right? Which AMD still does have as a weakness relative to Intel, right? And especially on the newer parts to have the matrix, like all the newer parts are going to have the matrix method of their core to core communication, which keep latencies pretty low, like relative to AMD. So, and again, on the AMD side, people can optimize better for that and work around it or whatever. But like,
I don't think there's. So if you look at this slide here, it gives you a summary of what they really announced. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind Threadripper will be a successful product.
Oh yeah,
right?
Definitely.
People who want heavily multi-threaded systems, but are also cognizant of price. Because there's a disconnect there. There are some people who don't really care about the price. Their companies buying an engineering workstation. They're putting 4 quadros in it. So the idea of a $999 processor versus a $1999 processor just doesn't mean shit to them, right? And in that case, they may still stay Intel because of other things.
Sure.
But for this group of like prosumers / people who just need to have the best crap in their system, like Threadripper is going to be a big selling part.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
I don't think there's any getting around it. So it's also kind of interesting because they've announced availability in early August. They're probably going to announce it in the late July timeframe. Why they would release clock speeds and pricing now is a little off to me.
Kind of like tipping their hand a little quickly.
It is, right? So like Intel's like
Intel has not announced the clocks for.
They have not.
Those higher core parts.
The 12 plus. Actually, I think today maybe 12 kind of leaked out, but they haven't officially announced.
So Intel can basically be like, oh, well, now we know what we need to shoot for our clocks.
And also this gives them like a month head start on planning for what their story is going to be. When they didn't.
Now that said, the clocks that AMD talked about, that's impressive for how many cores.
Yeah. If you can get 6, so they're basically saying 16 cores, minimum 3.4 gigahertz. That's great.
Yeah.
Right. And chances are it's probably going to be like 3.5.
Yeah.
Is what that works out to be. So I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be good. The 180 watt TDP scares me a little because the 95 watt TDP for Ryzen was a lie / misinterpretation.
I mean, I could almost put money on, I don't see that 16 core part just doing 180 watts. Like, I just don't see it.
I don't know.
At that
and in which case you get into the issue of, Skylake X had this huge problem of like power consumption being way higher than the previous gen.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping for AMD's sake they find is that they don't have that problem. If they can perform under Skylake X 10 core power consumption, that'll be a big benefit for them. They also announced Ryzen 3 parts. They didn't announce pricing. Hold on. No, they did not announce pricing, but they announced Ryzen 3. Not a surprise here because of Ryzen 3 Pro launch had occurred. But 1300X, 1200, 4-core, 4-thread, 3.5 to 3.7 on the high end, 3.1, 3.4 on the lower end. This is going to be their, $110 to $150 price range, $100 to $150 price range part. Interesting because these are going to go against Core i3 parts that are 2-core, 4-thread. So these are 4 true cores versus 2 cores, 4 threads.
It's weird to see them not doing hyper-threading.
Well, the Ryzen 5 went down to a quad-core a quad-core 8-thread part.
Yeah.
Right. So they had a quad-core 8-thread solution in Ryzen 5. Again, the same thing will happen. Ryzen 3 and single-threaded performance will be lower than the Core i3 in single-threaded performance.
Yeah.
But in anything that's multi-threaded capable, 4 real cores are going to outperform 2+ hyper-threading.
Sure.
Sure.
But now, when you get on the lower end like that, you're venturing more into typical gaming system territory, and people might care more about
typical business, just like productivity type machines is where you're looking at. This is a huge market for AMD, right? So,
and Intel does have some additional other benefit there because they have the what is their boost? The whatever coming out of standby faster, coming out of
speed shift.
Speed shift. Like they're could. Potentially a more responsive system, like noticeably more responsive compared to AMD.
I imagine that responsiveness tests will benefit Intel still.
Probably still. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. It
really is turning into
there was a Twitter controversy, but I can say it now. We have the Ryzen 3 processors. We're going through the testing process with them now. We're kind of getting in our Core i3 equivalents. And we'll probably test that Pentium. What is it, Ken? The
4560.
G4560 is that what it is? I think you're right.
So.
And we'll kind of just see where it stands.
It is interesting to see this turning into something where it's like before, not that many months ago, it was just Intel just cleaning up on everything. Now it's like, well, there's really no clear winner. It's like, maybe gaming and responsiveness, maybe Intel might have a little bit of an edge, but AMD's now just doing this crazy multiple core.
Look, I mean, I said this at the end of the story, and I don't want it to be hyperbolous, if that's a word. I don't want to create hyperbole. But AMD they've launched Ryzen 7, Ryzen 5, the Radeon RX 500 series, the EPYC data center processor, Vega Frontier Edition, Ryzen 3, and Threadripper and Vega are all due out in the next 3 weeks.
That is insane.
That's insane.
Yeah.
For a company that has downsized considerably, that doesn't have the number of PR people, product managers, marketing, whatever you want to do down the line, they suffer a lack of them.
It almost makes me wonder why they didn't pace this stuff out a little more.
I would totally agree with you there.
It's just like, holy crap.
They would like
Because
some
the
money to
bottom
flow
line.
into their coffers.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess.
Josh is right? Like
You can't sit on product that you have ready for a given market segment. You got to push it out. Because right now they have no products in any of those market segments.
AMD can't do that.
Yeah.
Intel,
True.
Intel can do that. NVIDIA can do that.
Yeah.
Because they're in market share leadership positions.
Right.
AMD doesn't have the ability to do that. Every dollar they spend on R&D is incredibly valuable. They need to get something from it. So anyway, that's Threadripper. We'll know more on that in a week or two, maybe 3 weeks, something in that line. Super excited for it. So congrats to them on that. Now we'll get into our hardware and software picks of the week. We'll start with me as I cool myself off.
Oh, here he goes with the fan.
Warm office with this fan.
So hot.
So hot. I don't know why. So I bought a stroller for me and my daughter to take to Disney World, and I needed a fan that was battery powered but attached to her stroller because it's hot in Florida in August. Right? I bought one at Disney World when we were there last time, and it was a piece of garbage. It had foam fan blades.
It looked like a Mickey Mouse.
So it was cute because it looked like Mickey Mouse. It's sitting over there on the floor somewhere. It's cute because it looked like Mickey Mouse, but it was a piece of garbage. And I paid like $30 for it or something like that. These were $15, and I bought 3 of them, like 3 different types. I've got this one here, the one that is actually my pick, the O2 Cool, and then I've got this one, which is the Sky Genius, because Chinese brands, I don't know. And I wanted to see, I'm going to buy 3, pick which one's the best. And so I've basically been doing battery life tests on battery-powered, stroller attached. These basically just have clips on them for fans. This one is powered by a LiPo 18650, kind of like your standard battery cell. This one takes 4 AA batteries.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of it's actually interesting to me just to get behind the science of things of
and then this one does not recharge. Right. That one is
this
USB.
One is USB rechargeable, right? And then it has speed adjustment, and it's so nice, so nice. This one is 2 speeds, but it uses AA's, and going into the science of we were talking about earlier, alkaline batteries droop as their capacity drains.
The voltage just
so the fan speed just gets lower until it turns off.
At least it's still working.
This one, once the battery, it goes from its whatever speed you have it set on to off. The fans just stop.
But from a your traveling standpoint thing, you could just pick up a spare or 2 18650 cell for that.
I guess I could.
And then, it died. You take the one cell out of your pocket, you throw it in there, you're done. This thing's got
I want to carry 18650 cells in my pocket.
Well, you don't want to carry 4 AA's, right?
So one of those is rated to be carried by a person. The other,
18650 will light right up.
18650s are meant to be integrated into products and not necessarily user accessible.
That's true.
They have a fuse at the end. It's.
I don't know if you looked at this. This is pretty.
That's a standard 18650. It's going to have that extra bit at the top.
There.
Yeah. Not all of them have it.
Well, I would imagine the one that goes into that device would.
It's also not apparent which side is positive or negative, as I just took it out of the box. Yeah. No. I figured it out. But don't do it backwards, guys.
Yeah.
So this is the science that is really driving me is the portable battery. I will say that the battery life on these 4AAs is going much longer than the battery on this LiPo.
Like you have to go out of your way to find 18650s that don't have the protection circuit in them.
I will say if you are a sweaty PC gamer, this one would be beneficial for you because it is USB powered. It'll charge and it will run off USB.
Cool.
So if you need a fan pointed up at you, this is a good option. It's a Sky Genius something. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah. It just seems lighter than this, too.
It's smaller and louder.
But it is lighter.
Nice, huh?
Lighter than this.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have 4AA batteries in it.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's better than carrying your spare coolant around, Al? Don't you still have a little bit of that left?
Is coolant?
What are we talking about?
No, from the HVAC.
Yeah.
No, that's 20 pounds worth.
Just jumping on yourself.
That's like a propane tank.
Shake it up and it'll cool you down.
That's true. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to put a vape battery in.
That's what 18650 cells are.
Oh, no.
Well, now
I feel like such a hipster.
Yeah, well, 18650s are safe. I mean, but if you carry it in your pocket and you fall on it,
if you short it out
yeah, you're going to have a bad day.
I like the idea of user replaceable while I'm in Disney World, but it requires a screwdriver to get to the bay. These are the types of things I have to think about.
Yeah, see, see.
Now I got to carry a mini screwdriver with me, right? That's a pain. Yeah.
Well, you don't carry a Leatherman with you.
So there's a screw.
Especially when I'm flying.
There's a screw, and it clips though, and
but the screw.
So you could. It's captured.
Replace the screw with gaff tape.
It is captured.
I mean, you could still get the screw out of there.
I could get the screw out of there,
and then just rely on the clip or whatever.
It's a long, arduous decision.
This one just seems more cumbersome.
Check out dadreports.com in the future, and I'll give you feedback on which fan was truly the best.
And he's not joking about that URL.
He's not joking.
No, dadreports.com is real.
That's a real site.
It's happening, guys. Okay, that's enough fan talk.
I can't wait to see what you do with that Nerf fan.
Jeremy, what do you have for us?
Oh, the North has risen again.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
A damn good, decent deal on the 1700s. $90 off.
What is this in real dollars?
Yeah. Don't give us this loony money.
Well, higher than it used to be because our dollar's up against you guys for some strange reason. I can't imagine why.
Not happy about
it. But Amazon.com tells me in boring, non-multicolored money, it's $269.
Wow. Okay.
So,
that's
$80 difference is not that bad.
Huh.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I will accept that answer. Yes. All right.
And your money is still boring.
Yeah, but who cares if it's boring if it's worth more?
Yeah, but the Australians don't make our money, so
Wait, the Australians make Canadian money?
Do yours glow in the dark?
The Australian
glow in the dark coins now.
I'm 90% sure it's Australia that has came up with that design that you see in euros and Canadian and Australian dollars now, and they produce them for the entire world essentially besides us.
Yeah, and the Kiwis. Everyone who's got the plastic money.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, you forget
do something.
you forget $300 in your pocket and you throw it through the wash, and
you can do that with our money
out.
too. It's made of cotton.
You don't get about $250 in crumpled stuff. You get it all back.
We use plastic down here anyway. I don't know what we're all talking about. Josh, what do you got for me?
What do I got?
What am I not going to buy and put in the corner of my office?
Did you already buy one of these?
I said, what am I not going to buy and put in the corner of my office?
Oh, well, I mean, you're the one who originally linked this to me. Last week.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's a full racing seat that is about $200 less than what you will find anyplace else, and it doesn't have the annoying middle post right in between your legs where the wheel installs.
Huh. Interesting.
So, for $389, that's a really good deal for a full seat that looks pretty sturdy and is fairly comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get one of these eventually.
The seat and the frame and the pedal stand.
I have this thing in my head where I get this idea where like Logitech sponsor some like racing rig of ours in the corner somewhere, right, where we put their wheels and pedals and headphones and stuff, and they just pay for us to have this amazing like racing simulator off in the corner or something.
I can't tell from that picture, but does it look like there would be some way to put a Visa mount kind of thing on that thing?
No.
They have for another $200 more, or actually 150.
It's in the bracket that
You can
add to
have
it.
triple monitor stands.
But it's one that's designed to attach to that.
Look at that one. Is this the one we're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, so it looks like it extends a little bit further off of the bottom.
Just get some tube steel, make your own.
Well, you probably could at that
$600.
point. Yeah.
I'm pretty lazy. I'm pretty lazy.
But hold on.
I'm not saying I'm gonna do it, but I also don't want to have one of these in my house.
But just a second. Does it come with the chair?
This 529 one?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both of them come with a chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What the hell else? What?
Well, I didn't know if you had to add because it's a standard mount for those.
Wait. The description for this thing right here is a single monitor stand.
But it has 3 monitors.
With adjustable leatherette seat.
But it says single monitor.
Oh, leatherette.
I don't really understand that. I don't know.
No, it's a single monitor stand, but yeah, it handles triple.
I mean, it clearly indicates it does. I mean, I guess I can see from this picture what they mean, right? Like it's one stand, and then there's these 2 just articulating arms. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, why not? I'll go with that. All right, and last and sometimes least, Allyn.
So I'm still a holdout. I have not cut the cord completely because my wife will not let me.
Yeah, I haven't either.
But if you're using Media Center, you may have noticed
definitely
within the
not
past
doing
few
that.
weeks that the channel guide just doesn't work anymore.
How are you still using Media Center?
He's using Windows 7.
It's Windows 8.1.
It just stopped working?
It just
we told you this shit was EOL, son.
Well, no, it's 8.1 though, which came with it.
Yeah, but
Right? Okay, but whatever. There's a way.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So there's a piece of software you install and it kind of acts like a channel guide service thing, except you just go through the
guys, it's totally fine. Hold on, let me show you this piece of software.
You go through you re-go through your channel setup on Media Center, like if you were setting up your tuners.
Right.
But you just opt out of the Microsoft channel guide. So it's no longer trying to pull down the channel guide from the regular,
And you can point it to something else, or
no? It pulls down. So there is a channel guide service called Schedules Direct,
which you have to pay for. By the way,
which you have to pay for. It's
I ran into
$25
this with EPD.
It's $25 a
data
a year.
Oh, okay.
When I
$25
was
a year.
running Myth TV, it's stupid that you have to pay for it.
Well, somebody's got to. Well, so here's the thing, though.
Yeah, I understand.
The guides are actually they're pretty detailed. They're more detailed than any regular channel guide I've seen. Like for example,
What do I need?
in conjunction with this, the EPG 123, the software is free.
Sure.
But the guide thing, you have to subscribe to the guide thing, and then you just link this software with your subscription on the guide thing, right? You make sure you have the right guide for the right region or whatever, just like you would for any other.
Put in your
channel.
zip code. Yep.
Well, you put in your zip code, and then you have whatever the options are for your service providers. You pick the right one, whatever. But it has if you just look at that, what is it? The first picture on that one. Just look at the first picture that pops up, the leftmost. You have to scroll up a little bit. Yeah, the leftmost bubble. And then look down near the bottom. Notice it's like saying what season number, what episode number.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's stuff that doesn't normally show up in a channel guide, but if you're kind of a person that is, keeping content offline and wanting to look for specific episodes, like
Of course, they're using scene format for the season episode.
basically, yeah.
SO4
Dirty
Eve 15.
And actually for more than a year now,
Who would do such a thing?
for more than a year now, the regular Media Center channel guide has also gotten a lot of other things wrong. Like it had the wrong artwork for a certain thing. Some TV show, but the artwork is from a completely different TV show, or makes no sense, right? That was apparently just errors in whatever the service was that Microsoft switched to a year or two ago as a stopgap, right? Whereas all of the artwork in these guides is all, as far as I've seen, always correct. Everything just works better. In many ways, it's better than, what they were fixing, the problem they were fixing in the first place. So, if you're still using cable card tuner, You know,
Still, as if anyone ever did.
Hey, three people.
I'm trying. It's fighting me.
3 people in the country, not who listen to our podcast, that are still using cable cards.
yeah.
Man, what a technology that would have been awesome.
What kills
Cable
me?
card was a DRM stick.
So?
That's all it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
But no one wants to freaking cable
No,
box.
but you could get around it because I mean, look at what you went through. Or it was Allyn, someone whose name I'm forgetting at the moment, went through hell trying to get cable cards to install in their cable receivers.
Well, that's just because the cable company never wanted to support it in the first place, so they didn't.
Well, no, because now you get a second TV, and good lord, just you can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, no, I mean, I've used other cable boxes and stuff like that, and like even a lot of the other, you know, we're always messing around with like Shield interface and other stuff. Like Media Center, as old as it is still more responsive than like any of those things.
It's not more responsive.
Are you kidding me? The only thing that there is a delay in it all
Doesn't matter. It doesn't exist anymore.
It's just when the tuner is like locking onto a new
Sure,
channel.
but Plex DVR doesn't have a delay looking through programs.
That's true.
I mean, I guess, but
You can't use Plex DVR with a cable card tuner because they don't support the encryption, which sucks.
Yeah,
Media Center is the only thing that supports that encryption,
I know.
which sucks.
And I am shocked that to this day nobody has reversed that or figured out a way around it.
True.
Yeah.
Because,
People
like,
have to want it,
Yeah, that's true.
right? I mean,
That's
to be
true.
fair, right? Like, there's people that would reverse it, just pirate their content, and they don't give a crap,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
there you go. All right, that's our show for this evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Again, PC. So the URL you can find all the show notes we talked about, links to stories, RSS feeds, video downloads, YouTube links, all that stuff is at pcper.com/podcast. You can find it all there. And we will be back next week, July 26th. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll say the 26th. How about that, guys? For another episode. Okay. Wait, it's a hold on. Aren't we on like a special number next week or something?
460.
Oh, it's not special. Okay. Never mind.
My favorite GTX card.
One of the best.
8. Okay. Nothing? Nobody else? Input on the number 460? All right.
Nope.
That's it, everybody. All right, we'll see you next week. I'm Ryan Schrapp.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Palmreff.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
Good night. If you enjoyed this content, consider supporting in-depth technical content by contributing at patreon.com/PCPer.